All right. Well, welcome to this first in a very long time episode of the Skyline Forum. I'm joined today by Ruben Hanssen and Max Komnenich. Let me introduce you guys first. So, Ruben, you are Amsterdam based, studied
hmm
planning at Amsterdam, and then mastered in urbanism at Delft University. You had a VR company, which is exciting, something we need to talk more about. And after 3 years at a major engineering firm in Amsterdam, you've now gone full time and founded a platform called the Aesthetic City, which has pretty quickly kind of blown up. Just so we have some
Right.
context, what is the Aesthetic City all about?
The Aesthetic City is a platform to promote more livable, beautiful cities and architecture, and yeah, urban environments in general. And it's basically a collection of social media, yeah, channels and a website combined to and a podcast, of course, to spread awareness and
Of
to
course.
yeah. So yeah, it's a whole lot of things. Videos, produce a lot of content, and of course the Twitter channel where we have 25,000 followers. So I hope to, by spreading awareness a bit, that yeah, some interesting ripple effects will occur throughout the world.
I think it's really interesting what you're doing, and in particular, you're creating. It dovetails well with what we're going to be talking about today. You're creating kind of a repository, or almost like what do they call it, a learning set, right? If you're doing machine learning and you want to teach a computer something, you have to have a good set of like this is what it should be versus this is what it shouldn't be. And so we'll get more into that in a second. Max, you studied design at Illinois. You were 7 years at Canon Design, which I didn't know before we started this. And you're now associate principal at the Lamar Johnson Collaborative in Chicago, where a real good friend of mine also works. I was joking with Alan, who we both know before, that there's the general population and what they're doing, and then there's like the bleeding edge of what's happening, and then Max is like way out in front of the bleeding edge, just kind of absolutely on that event horizon of technology. So I'm relaunching the Skyline Forum, and I don't usually do current events sorts of topics on here. I don't get people on like, hey, tell me about your life, because let's be honest, most real estate developers aren't that interesting. And but this is kind of a current events episode, but it's also a historical episode. Ruben and I were talking yesterday about the time I remember when I first saw the internet. It was 1991, I think. I was at my dad's office, and it was the Mosaic browser. Did you ever see Max? Did you ever see the
Yeah, yeah,
Mosaic
yeah.
browser? I mean, that's way, way back, right? And you see something like that, and you get a sense that I'm seeing this, and I know that this is going on right now, but you just get the sense that this is the inception of something that's going to be changing the world for decades. So I was minding my own business 3 weeks ago on Twitter on a Sunday afternoon, and I saw a picture on the Aesthetic City's Twitter feed of a like 4-story French houseman style mansard roofed building that Ruben, who I had not met before, had generated, and he said he had generated in this program called Midjourney AI. So just to give a little bit of context for this whole architecture and machine learning or artificial intelligence, Ruben, how would you explain to kind of a normal person who's not, necessarily in the weeds in technology and even design, what is Midjourney AI?
Yeah, so as I understand it, it is an algorithm trained on millions of pictures. Yeah, and of course with metadata attached to it, so it knows what those pictures represent. And then you give an assignment to visualize something in the form of a prompt, like a little piece of text, basically. Yeah, just an assignment. And then for the algorithm, and the algorithm understands what you want to visualize, and then create it through. I believe the process is called stable diffusion.
Yep.
And so it has been trained, and I'm not sure if this is also part of the GPT algorithm, but let's say it's used a massive data set, and it's also being refined every day, so it continues to become better and better over time. And with it, you can generate things like generate or yeah create I don't know a prince sitting on a horse, riding through a green valley, and it will create just that. And then you can say, well, but I also want it to be in the style of a Picasso painting, and it can actually understand what that has to look like, and it will generate it in the style of a Picasso painting, or shot with a certain kind of old camera or something, and
Right.
it will generate it in the style you can do. Just the possibilities are endless, because anything we can create we can think of, it can basically generate, or it can attempt something in that direction. The only thing is, of course, there are some limitations, like there's some not suitable for work material that is not, it's like banned. They have some keywords that they have banned, but other than that, like, the freedom is just staggering.
I can't imagine how this could be used in ways that are not safe for work. Max, why don't you share your screen? I think we were talking about a second ago. So, yeah, that's right. So there's an algorithm, or the kind of the name service Midjourney, but Midjourney is not really a like a standalone program, as I understand it, and you need to run it on Discord, which from my perspective was kind of a dizzyingly new sort of technology in its own right. Go ahead, Max.
That's a little like internet nerdy stuff when you get into Discord, right? It's the Discord. This is the Discord interface, which is
it's a new thing built on a new thing. That was my experience of it.
Yeah, this is a chat that you used with your buddies, to talk when you were playing video games. That's like sort of what this is from originally. The way that Midjourney works is actually there's a bot that you invite to a sort of a private chat on Discord. And then, as Ruben was saying, you sort of tell the bot, hey, imagine this, imagine that, and you type it in, and it spits out little images and 4-packs like this. And then from there, you can go back and hit versions of that and change what you're saying about it and use different words, and it gives you another 4-pack of images until you sort of get into it and upscale them.
Okay, hang on.
Continually refine them.
We got jargon flying, 4-packs and upscaling. So,
sorry,
as we were talking, there's kind of two forks in the road right here. You can either, and if you, what's dizzying about the Discord or about the use of Midjourney is you're doing it, as you said, in a public chat. So I'm typing in that I want to see whatever it is I want to see, and it's generating mine in a thread, while a bunch of other people who I've never met before are also doing the same thing. But you can kind of either like, Ruben, what are some of the descriptions you gave? Let me pull some of these up. I'm gonna steal the screen here for a second.
Yeah.
So Ruben, these are some of the images that you generated. Talk me through what you told this algorithm in order to generate images like this.
Yeah, let me quickly go to a place where I saved some of them, because they're pretty long sometimes.
Right.
There are a lot of keywords to really kind of fine tune it to exactly what you want. So for this one, for the other one in the street, I actually know that one. Let me see.
Here, hold on. Let me go to the ones in the street here. This one here.
Yeah, like that one is, let me see, that one was, so here I actually entered, so a beautiful livable street lined with beautiful human skilled buildings, mid-rise classical buildings with detailed facades, Palladio, Vignola, eye level, hyper-realistic, photorealistic, 4K. And then I added some keywords to activate a certain version of the algorithm. So _V space 4 and then _Q space 3. So would get like the version 4 is a bit more advanced, and if you activate it, you get better results. So that's why I did that. So I really, my intention in this one was to see how it would interpret a beautiful livable street lined with beautiful human buildings. And so in the other pictures, which you see with this is like a Mexican street with Mexican, Spanish colonial architecture.
Right.
I entered that, so it would know, okay, that's what I have to generate. And I was astounded by how well it created actually these very
the detail in here. So you were just saying it when you originally do this, it creates, like you said, and Max was showing a second ago, like a 4-pack. It's saying, I don't know
Yeah,
which direction you want me to take this. And then you
exactly.
select one, and then you kind of keep going through an iterative process, and it resolves more and more detail. But this is just
Yeah,
all words. I mean, you gave a lot of words there, and I would see people
yeah,
putting a whole paragraph, but it's just words, and that's what
yeah.
it's just hard
Just
to imagine this
yeah.
level of.
I mean, sometimes one word can change it extremely. I mean, if you just use Gothic architecture instead of Art Nouveau, or you use, yeah, I know, Dutch houses, or maybe Central American, it will completely change the whole, yeah, what you see. So this is that was like a Swedish,
Right,
this
right.
Swedish bird's eye view. So that's what a really lovely one from this one. I used a bird's eye view in the prompt, and it actually generates this whole city view. And just for me, what is astounding, I'll go to the Gothic example. It
Uh-huh.
just generates an entire city. You can even see, like, in the distance, just it
Right.
going.
You've
Yeah,
got an edge. You're transitioning like to a
yeah,
different transect or whatever.
yeah, and an entire roofscape as well. So of course, like, if you would zoom in and if everything would be sharp, you would see some things that might not be all okay. But I mean, most looks pretty, yeah, realistic. So that's what I find so interesting. Like, just the amount of detail, and just it creates a whole world almost. And yeah, and I'm still not out if it's like some sort of a, yeah, like, in what way this is kind of a visual trick it does, or if it's yeah.
I'm
It's so
I'm
detailed.
fooled. It
That's
has fooled me.
everyone's first response is, oh, it found that picture on the internet somewhere. You know,
Yeah,
it didn't make that. Like, that's out there. It just went and Googled it,
So my
which is totally not
understanding,
true.
yeah,
right? My understanding from the Chat GPT side is that I understand this linguistically maybe better than I do on this imagery side. My understanding is that when you're doing machine learning with words, they had the hardest time figuring out how to teach all the different colors or all the different shades of meaning in any given word, because it's very context dependent based on the grammar, and not different, Ruben, from what you're saying, such and such, but classical, but also Palladian with that little,
yeah,
that little thing. And it's in, northern Spain, not central Spain, whatever.
yeah,
My understanding is that on the word level, they make what they're called like a word matrix, where it's like a 60 column table, and you're like, is there any humor in this context? Is there any irony? Is there any satire? And you literally have to take a word and categorize it according to many, many, many dimensions, but you end up converting a word basically into math. And then the
yeah.
computer says, okay, this is a 60-dimensional mathematic formula. I understand this now. And so I suppose something of that sort is going on, here. So Ruben has been kind of pushing the envelope on how specific you can be verbally. And Max, I know from our conversations, you've been looking at this in that respect, but also saying, hey, I've got a sketch for a live project that's at the corner of LaSalle and whatever it is in this actual place. And we've already done a massing, or we've already been in SketchUp. And I want to take that actual idea where the building isn't shaped like a mushroom. It can't just be anything. It has to be kind of like this, but I want to see, what sorts of ideas that this software would have. Take the sketch and take the ideas. So why don't you show us a couple of the ideas that you've worked on here?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got one client that does a bunch of really activated amenity spaces at their towers, and that's sort of what I've been thinking about, how I want to use this program in the near term, understanding that no one knows what it's going to be like in 5 years. But this is some of the stuff that I've been messing around with. So taking an existing image or a rendering of something that we have and putting it in there, and you can actually, if that image is hosted on the internet, you can copy that link to the image, right?
Right.
Like,
you have
where
to get
it's
it into the
hosted.
system to be able to kind of comment on it and say, start here.
Yeah, and actually with Discord, you can just sort of drop it into Discord, and then it creates a little web link for it, and you can say, \imagine and then paste that web link and then add all those descriptors and words to it about
Right.
it. So you can see down here, this is one of those, this is that image that I dropped in, right?
I note the stylistic similarities to everything that Ruben is working on. Go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. Exactly the opposite for sure.
But that's what I like, because this is and we'll have a separate conversation about the ins and outs of some of those things someday. But this is a platform which kind of whatever direction you're headed in, it is already thinking those thoughts, right?
So then, you get a few of the preliminary things and you start honing in on them. And, I don't think I'm not intending to resolve a building and create a finished image. For me, it's sort of part of a design process. I want to inspire myself, think about unique experiences and opportunities in these moves. And actually, Ruben, you were talking about how when you zoom in really tightly to these images, it doesn't actually make sense and the details don't resolve. And I think that's my favorite part, is that you don't have to get bogged down in the reality of the thing. And you can look at this image and say, oh, is that a dance floor lined in neon blue?
Can you zoom in a little bit, like Control plus? I can't quite see it, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, like, it starts to kind of break down
right,
on a certain level.
This doesn't quite resolve down here, but there's something inside right next to this glass box with a dance party on top of it. And then, this balcony like hangs over the edge. And there's these little moments that I think could be inspirational kickoff points to creativity for designers and architects or whoever. You can take a little bit out of this without getting caught up in, oh, I don't like the way that detail works, or that, that piece hits this piece. If you don't have to get caught up in that. You can focus on the things you like and just get a little excited based on those.
Well, and it seems, to introduce the possibility or the opportunity to introduce a bit of randomness or kind of some ideas maybe out of left field, right? I have my Pinterest board, you have your Pinterest board, the client has their Pinterest board, and there's this certain vernacular, and you've all gone to the same buildings in Miami and Austin and Denver, whatever, and you kind of saw what came out last year and what was trending.
Mm-hmm.
But you throw a little bit of pigment into the dye here, or a little shade of this or shade of that, and suddenly now you're all looking at something. So you also have kind of some crazier examples, if I remember, more on the facade side, like.
Right. Let's start with like one of these. So I got into thinking about just like, okay, if you're not trying to make a whole building. Yep. Sorry.
That's all right.
If you're not trying to make a whole building, if you're just trying to think about sort of a facade system, right? A glass and perforated metal, bronze, architectural facade, something.
Right.
And you get these 4 images. And as you sort of dive in and iterate and reiterate on these things, you can get these really
that particular image
detailed things that evoke something, but don't actually fully make sense too at the same time.
They don't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it's so striking.
Right. And it, like, all of a sudden I'm thinking about how you would do something like this and put, a glass panel next to a perf thing that's recessed, and like what you could do with those little moves. I think I have more series of those sorts of things, right? Thinking about it like,
go up. You had one that was
we were doing more organic ones. I had a bunch of terracotta.
Yeah, right there. That one right in the middle. Yeah, right there. One to your left. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to build that, right? Or at least, not with my current funding sources. But it's just so striking.
Right. And I think what's exciting.
What was your prompt for this? A highly detailed contemporary facade system of glass with terracotta fins.
And one of my favorite things about this is that it's open source beta right now. So it's not like a private thing. And to your point, you're in this live room with all these people and seeing everything they're doing. And if everything that's been made on Midjourney, you can go find and see. You don't have to make it. So, and on all of them, if you click into it, and this is where I was spending time right before we got here, was like, if you go into the community feed here, you can click on any image that's been made and you can see what they wrote, and you can click their parent image and see their parent images. And you can go back through all their iterations and see, which is just really exciting to sort of kind of reverse engineer how this thing works. So like here were the parent images for those, right? I think this was the first pass when I asked that.
Right.
Yeah. And
Well,
the
go
nice
ahead,
thing
Ruben.
is that you can even you can even take other people. So in the Discord interface, you can also take other people's parts of prompts, copy them in your own, and so it's very, there's a lot of cross cross inspiration and cross fertilization happening in this platform.
I think I
Right.
really love that there's not a recipe for how this works, because it wasn't some fully, created computer program. It's learning on its own. It's artificially intelligent, all that. So as like a community of people messing with this, we're sort of trying to reverse engineer it as a group. And there's an awesome sort of collaborative piece there. I spent this morning just looking at cool architecture images on Midjourney and like looking at their prompts, copying them. I've got a big like OneNote thing going on of like all the different camera settings and modifiers. And we're talking about like you can weight inputs, so you can put --W and then put a number
Right.
behind
How
it so that
heavily
it's
you want
more
to.
or less important. Things like that are really exciting.
Well, and Ruben, when we were talking yesterday, one of Ruben's passions and interests is looking things not quite as modernistic as this, but rather that have more of a historical pedigree. And what I find interesting is that this algorithm, by having done this huge machine learning exercise, if it's able to produce those images, it must kind of on some level understand, or it is in the process of learning what the essence is of, for example, a bold colored panel on a high. It obviously understands something of the essence, or it is being taught and iterating something of the essence of that. And that's kind of what we're all trying to do, right? When we say I want to bring this design to life, that you start with emotions, you start with who is this for, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's already there, but it is a new conversation partner.
It's almost like it captures the essence of what you want and just generates variations on that essence. And that's very useful if you just want, you want to design a neighborhood and you want it to look in a certain style. It understands the style and it will just give some variations in that, but it understands like the underlying, as you get of course, if you get the prompt right, and that takes perhaps some iterations, but if you get it right, it can really, it kind of gets the atmosphere that you want.
Right. Now, I will say what we're looking at here is, and even in Ruben's example, right? So Ruben's example is not, let me switch back to this. This is not, bleeding edge modernism, but it is equally difficult and expensive to build something that's detailed like this, right? You pick your expensive, your prohibitively expensive poison, I guess is the idea. But I will say though that as kind of a foil to all of that, when I was in the Discord chat, some lady was working on a living room design for some setting in Poland or something. I think maybe she had uploaded an empty living room that she was in, and she was adding things and changing them. And I think that it would be a misunderstanding for people to see this or what we're talking about and conclude, yeah, this is just for creating things which we could, rarely afford to build. It seems, also quite capable at much more, I'll call it mundane, less, exploratory, mind-blowing journeys. But maybe let's pivot now and think, so the takeaway that I have, or one of the use cases I have, and Max, you were just mentioning this, it kind of, whether you do it for very new cutting edge stuff, or you just, are going more down the fairway, it gives you the opportunity to create a bespoke mood board of stuff that doesn't necessarily even exist. Yeah. Right? I mean, because I'm limited by the groupthink that exists right now, whether it's groupthink about not going far enough into the future, or the group think that's only in, 2022 vintage and not thinking about historical Dutch architecture, for example. I'm now not limited by whatever the group think happens to be in my circle.
Or some minute piece of a real image that turns you off to it, right? I like the idea of using this stuff for precedent because what happens, and it's happened to, I'm sure, both of you, you put some image up there and everything is great about it and the client loves it, except they hate that part of that city or the building next door or the way it meets the ground, but everything else works and they just can't get over it. And all of a sudden, if you come with precedent imagery or examples that aren't even real, it shifts the conversation from do you like this project to do you like the way this makes you feel?
That's right.
That sort of thing, which really excites me because then you can sort of set the stage with those, take lessons learned, and then design something based on that.
Well, and I know that lots of people have a hard time. Let's say you come into a design meeting and you're trying to verbally explain where you want to go. A lot of people can't do that. They can't visualize that. That's not what that's not their bent. But short of going out and spending, tens of thousands on a bunch of renderings for stuff that they may not be interested in at all, classically, you haven't been able to show them, all these worlds that don't exist. It's prohibitively expensive. And now, relatively quickly, you can whip a lot of that up and have it to show. One thing that we haven't talked about, but Max, I remember you were saying is a kind of challenge at the moment or something that you're probing. How specifically, how tightly to a precedent image can you make it operate? I get the sense that Midjourney, for example, if you give it a portrait of somebody, they want a certain amount of differentiation so that there's no, I don't know if it's a copyright thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's a part of it. They will not exactly replicate it. But to what extent could I go take a drone shot of an obviously vacant block, and then you put a sketch in there and we feed it in and say, everything except what's in the green screen here, or everything what's in the white, how tightly can we steer it right now? What's your read?
Yeah, I haven't gotten there on Midjourney to that level yet. I don't know if it's designed for that. I've seen some other AI stuff where people are like painting with brushes, where they'll like make more water here, or I think DALL-E has a setting where it's like redo this part of the image, leave that part. I don't think Midjourney
DALL-E is another diffusion image.
Oh generator. Yeah, sorry, yes, one of the other AI guys. I don't think Midjourney is doing that stuff yet, so I haven't dialed it into, really specific. I know you can turn up and down sort of how much it stylizes things from inputs. So you can say, when I say, classic Palladian architecture, I mean it, versus you turn it down and, it can go wild with its interpretation of that.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Ruben?
Yeah, I was just thinking about one potential idea could be to just take a screenshot from Google Street View and drop it in there, and then those kinds of things I want to try out. But I just want to like Max, I haven't gone that far yet as well.
I will say that if you just put an image prompt in without any text, it turns it into some like really basic flat pattern based on the image, and it doesn't know what it's looking at. And
with a prompt of course, like something to steer in direction, like this street but with X and Y and Z.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be interesting, just to take random streets and see if it could already be used to some sort of like because I'm mostly interested in the experience on at eye level of a street, for example, and of urban spaces. So I think, just using very simple things like Google Street View could be excellent to have to create the input. Of course, you need to host it somewhere online, but the
amount of work it takes to do a visualization of like a whole streetscape experience without something like this is kind of wild. Seeing your images of like the street view with all that detail, I mean, that's a game changer for how long it takes to make something that feels like that.
Yeah.
Let's speculate a little bit. Maybe not quite as far. Ruben and I got into like, this gets into, robots and stuff and all sorts of scary scenarios. Let's keep that at bay maybe for a moment. Although I'm inclined to go there too. Where Ruben and Max, having both been on the, professional design side, where do does Autodesk buy this, or where does this go in your mind in the near and the midterm as relates to the field of design? I'm sure that there are a spectrum of possibilities. Where do you place your bet on how and to what extent this book is an integral part of design in 2027?
It's some years off.
It's a tough one. My gut reaction is that it's much bigger than Autodesk or design world, like software land, and that this, I'm more impressed by sort of the Chat GPT AI stuff at the moment, where it's like, hey, write me a software program that does this, and it just goes out and does it. Like
a WordPress plugin that does such and such, and it just starts.
So somebody we have a chat at work about this stuff, and somebody sent one around the other day that was just like, hey, here's an AI engine that is designed to take your natural language and turn it into Excel scripts. Take everything in column A, multiply it by things in column C that are colored red, and put the output here. And it's like,
who needs shortcuts anymore? We always had to learn the shortcuts.
I don't know Excel. I don't know Excel to do that, but I feel like with that plugin like that, I could do it, right? It's going to revolutionize all sorts of things. This is one piece of it for sure. But I actually think this is a much, much smaller piece than the larger scale of what this sort of quick AI stuff is going to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it also really much depends on how they will integrate this technology and other things. Like you described, perhaps if you have a brush, you can use it in some way to brush it over parts of an image. If you have those kinds of easy extra manipulations in the software, of course, I think Midjourney would probably need its own software to host it then. But I think that could have that would also be a game changer, because then you can really use it as also like an image editing program instead of only just a generation program. And then there's even more possibilities. But I think that's only a matter of time. So in 2027, I wouldn't dare to say, because it's just too much. And I agree that ChatGPT is also going to be massive. I mean, if we see what is here in end of 2022, oh man.
You could fake every paper you wrote in high school in seconds, because it'll spit out a bibliography to go with it.
I had it writing jokes about rezonings, and it was like, in the style of Dave Chappelle, getting a rezoning is harder than getting a date with Halle Berry. It's like changing the end of a Tupac song. I mean, good luck, or some whole thing like that. I spent 2 years and they gave me a cemetery designation. It was just incredible what it was coming up with.
It can't fully like reference. Well, in my case, I tried to reference something to find some information and reference it with real sources, but it gave me bollock sources. Like the link didn't go to the right article. It said it was making up, because it was a made up article. It quoted. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but I think that will come as well. I mean, that should be.
I mean, I know it's a cop-out to say I don't know where it's going in 5 years. I have no clue. And I'm just trying to find ways to integrate, what is happening right now into my daily workflow to make the things we're doing better. Because it's an unknown.
The point that you just made a moment ago it's probably right, because you look at it and you're like, okay, in the world of corporate mergers and acquisitions, Autodesk, throws $1 billion at this, but you're like, is Autodesk not like the equivalent of a landline phone? And this is like the mobile system where you're literally, Autodesk staring down this tsunami saying, I'll buy you. And the tsunami just, passes over Autodesk. It's like I guess the question is just going to be, it seems to me that if you wanted to have the computing power to attempt to create, something like construction documents. I guess the question that I have is, how long will it take for the incredible investment of time that it would take to teach something like this to make, a flashing detail that's, not only has it generated this crazy image, but it's also actually flashing it in a way that that takes, it's kind of like, how long would it take to develop pharmaceuticals to treat this rare disease? If it was economically viable, maybe not that long, but only 100 people have this. And so is this going to be where the software engineers want to focus their energies on design software?
I think it's going to do something like this. I have friends that are software engineers, and do you remember Clippy from Microsoft Word? Like the little paperclip that would show up and be like, did you mean this? And it was always wrong, right?
Comic Sans
screwed you up.
Comic Sans was invented for Clippy. Yes, go ahead.
But now the software engineers I know they're writing code and they're sitting there writing stuff, and then they have an AI plugin that basically pops up and it says, hey, did you actually mean to do this? And it spits a big chunk out, and they're like, oh, yeah, actually, that is what I meant. My bad. And it's quickly becoming, we always had like the spell check what you wrote. I think quickly this is becoming, it's writing and you're doing the checking to make sure it's writing what you wanted it to. And I think even the documentation stuff will go that way. The whole thing will be sort of, you put the inputs in, it spits something out and you edit it, as opposed to the other way around where it's editing your stuff, if that makes sense.
Can you imagine the insurance and liability issues? Go ahead, Ruben.
Oh, no, just imagine this, but for everything, like everything you do on your computer, just literally everything. Just designing in Photoshop, it can perhaps watch with what you're doing. I'm not sure how it will work, and then just in every program, it knows what you're doing and can improve on it. That would be how I envision it. Maybe even if you allow it to record your life, it could even be like personal coaches that, like, if you have your Apple Watch, it knows like how much you watch, and you suddenly hear like, hey, you said you were going to eat less sugar, but I'm pretty sure you just had this and this, and I mean, on every level it could watch with what you're doing and improve on you and give better advice. But never mind, I'm on a tangent, I feel.
Oh my goodness. I wanted to stay out of the pointing out my excessive sugar intake side of things. Well, I think that this is fascinating. I'm really grateful for you guys for showing us, what you've been working on. We'll be posting a few of these things on the website. There are some guides that Max shared to kind of walk you through how to get Midjourney and Discord and all those sorts of things. But I'll also post links to Max and Ruben so you can find them online. But guys, this was first new episode of Skyline in many years, and I'd say that this was a perfectly worthy topic to bring it out of retirement. So thanks so much to both of you.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again in a few years when this thing is totally different. We're doing something wildly new with it.
It will probably do the interview for me. It will show up and ask the questions by that point. All right.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much.
I'm going to hit end on the recording, but don't leave just yet, because I think it has to like